What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Scyushi and we are back in some more Trove, and today we're going to be talking about the Shadow Hunter Nerfs. Now, I would have talked about this a day or two ago, but obviously, you know, channel got hacked and all that stuff, so everything's kind of back in order now for me, thankfully, thanks to all of you guys, but we won't get into that today because I've already got another video that talked about it. We're going to be messing around here in U10. We are in the test server, just as a quick reminder, and the Shadow Hunter Rework has not gone live yet. Honestly, I don't know when it's gonna go live. Frankly speaking, it's pretty crazy when you think that this is already a couple weeks ago now that we have had the Shadow Hunter Rework update, which is like, it just is a flabbergastation to me that the Shadow Hunter is getting tweaked so much more than any of the other reworks in the game, which kind of makes sense based on the feedback that I've heard from other people, not necessarily with my own experiences per se, but I've heard lots of people talking about how Shadow Hunter was basically the strongest character in the entire game, and so people didn't like that it was the strongest but also a decent speed farmer. I can say that the speed farming has never really been very significant on the class. Outside of our time to kill is still very nice, but our speed farming of getting from dungeon to dungeon is completely based on movement speed, in which case it's not as good as I would like. But whatever. I mean, at this point, honestly speaking, any Shadow Hunter mains out there, we're just gonna have to take what we can get. Now, the thing is that a lot of the people that are arguing in the defense of the Shadow Hunter, saying it's too powerful, it needs to be nerfed more. As far as I know, don't quote me on this, there is some tomfoolery about. Because I've heard from some people like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this in order to optimize your damage, which is very peculiar because the average player doesn't play that way. And I feel like the damage potential of this character is being exaggerated just because of people using certain tricks, but we won't get into any of that today. I'm just trying to put things into perspective and just tell you what I know about. So anyways, without further ado, this first thing is a bit confusing to me, but it says that the passive ability has changed. So I'll read it verbatim because maybe it'll make more sense. Explosion when attacking shadow marked targets damage has been decreased to 100%, down from 250%. Now, near as I can tell, what that means is when you shadow mark an enemy, there's a chance of an explosive effect to end up triggering. So that explosive effect specifically has been nerfed. This is not necessarily related to how much more damage an enemy takes when they're shadow marked, which has actually been nerfed separately. But anyways, the explosive effect has had its area of effect increased, however, so we can't really test it on these enemies because, frankly speaking, our trap still kills almost everything, so whatever. The movement speed increase from the dodge has been slightly reduced to 40%, down from 45%. So when we dodge now and get the movement speed buff, we actually have 40% movement speed instead of 45% buff. Bring that number up, not down, devs. Seriously, the movement speed is not a problem with this character. I mean, it is a problem, but like in a negative sense. It's not that the class is too fast and needs to slow down. It's actually that it's too slow and not keeping up with most others. But anyways, Shadow Mark. So the damage... listen to how they word this. The damage increase debuff done to shadow marked targets. Like, okay, so... basically, the amount of extra damage that you do to shadow mark targets has been reduced to 5%, down from 15%. So normally we were getting a 15% increase in damage to shadow mark targets. Now that is a measly 5%. And here's the crazy thing that I want to stress, guys, is that the passive explosion effect and shadow mark damage itself, as far as I know, I'd have to double check with the original patch notes from the test server, but as far as I know, those abilities were not touched with the rework, which means that technically those abilities of like the passive damage of the Shadow Mark is actually going to end up being worse off than it is currently on the live server with Shadow Hunter, which frankly speaking doesn't really matter too much because our base damage is just so astronomically high anyways. So they ended up changing the basic attack damage. This is without your class gem, by the way. It has been nerfed down to 375% damage, down from 400% damage. Then there's also going to end up being the gem basic attack damage. So get this, the basic attack damage of the class gem ability has been decreased to 200%, down from 250%, which is the exact same damage that the class gem had in the first patch. So when the PTS first came online, it had this weak Shadow Hunter, which now is just the normal with your base attack. Thankfully, enemies in U10 don't really matter. And frankly speaking, we're not going into the delves anyways, so who cares? Anyways, Shadow Seekers have had their damage decreased. Almost all of them across the board are basically the same as the day one patch, slightly changed on some of them, but Shadow Seeker sucks anyway, so who cares? Damage on the Sun Snare, which this could be bad, but it's not that big of a deal because Sun Snare still can one-shot most enemies in U10, thank God. Of course, I've got like a maxed out Shadow Hunter, so my damage numbers should not be used as reference. But either way, the damage from the Sun Snare has been decreased to 350%, down from 400%. And then here, it doesn't stop there. The Sacred Arrow, this is your ultimate damage. So the initial damage of the shot hitting an enemy has been reduced to 550%, down from 650%. Honestly speaking, that shot was not really doing anything anyways, because it's the damage over time effect that has all of the damage. So I don't know why they just keep nerfing every single aspect of this character. It's actually quite annoying. So the damage over time effect, however, has been nerfed to 400%, down from 450% every tick. So whatever, you know, that's whatever. We're still doing a lot of damage, even with this rework. I tested it out with my buddy Nintendo. We did end up having pretty much two maxed out Shadow Hunters, and we ended up both being able to duo a U10 Leviathan. It wasn't fast by any means, but the fact is that it was still an option, so I mean, at least Shadow Hunter still does a decent amount of damage, so whatever. But then also, this I hate. So the ultimate ability has also had the cooldown increased to 45 seconds, up from 30 seconds. So 30 seconds is already an insane cooldown for an ultimate ability. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, frankly speaking, we're not using our ultimate in dungeons and stuff anyways, right? Most of all, we're going to be using it when we're fighting Leviathans or in the odd chance that we're fighting Delves and stuff. But my same argument of all of these changes to the Shadow Hunter still applies, in that the devs are completely balancing these numbers for the small amount of players that are at the end game and completely maxed out, like myself and you know, the other tryhards. You know, we're all here, we're all completely maxed out. Okay, cool, but I worry that these changes are going to end up most of all affecting the average player, which is going to end up being at the beginning to the mid tier of the game, right? And if Shadow Hunter is going to end up being considerably weak in those aspects of the game, it's going to make people lose a lot of incentive to continue grinding the character, is what I would say, except we're talking about the Shadow Hunter, which is literally like the most popular character in the game, which I think is why there's so much back and forth between, oh, it's too powerful. It's like, shut up. Nobody complained about the Chloromancer being the strongest character in the game as a boss killer. Leave my Shadow Hunter alone. But frankly speaking, if I'm being perfectly honest with you guys, and taking away all of the hype around it, and taking away all the memes around it, and the over-exaggeration and everything like that, frankly speaking, if this was the Shadow Hunter that we ended up getting on the live server, it would be a-okay. You know, it does still frustrate me that they're spending so much extra time with this character, but I feel like in a lot of ways it's because of the fact that the Shadow Hunter is such a popular character that they want to get it right? Which, frankly speaking, I still think that they're listening to the wrong people when it comes to all of the buffs and stuff like that, because a lot of it is based off of the 10% of people that have a completely maxed out, and I mean even more maxed out than me, Shadow Hunter for the delves and crap like that. But it's like, whatever, man. At this point, like, frankly speaking, my channel being hacked and everything kind of just put a new perspective on me, or for me, with this stuff where it's like, who cares? You know, like, I keep saying how, like, who cares if the character is overpowered because we're playing a PvE game, it's not focused on PvP. But that argument goes both ways, you know. So the same argument can be said to me, where who cares what they end up nerfing with the class, so long as it's better than the Shadow Hunter that's on the live server, we don't really have any right to complain. Which I'm not saying in defense of all of these nerfs. Frankly speaking, I think that the devs are just slowly nerfing this class into the ground, and it is very disappointing. But it's like, whatever, man. We just gotta deal with it the way that it is. So yeah. Anyways, yeah, let me show you guys a little bit here so we can still, as you see, absolutely decimate dungeons. Thank God. I don't have super good movement speed just because of the fact that I am rocking attack speed on most of my gear, because I was doing some testing and stuff like that to basically I was trying out the ultimate ability with more movement speed because of the way that it shoots a lot faster and so on and so forth. But again, generally speaking, we're going to be able to handle U10 no problem. Shadow Hunter's gonna be decent in the delves, not fantastic, but going to end up doing, like, Shadow Hunter does considerable damage, but his survivability is kind of, I mean, you get a lot of survivability just if you're constantly spamming your snares, because they'll end up keeping enemies perfectly still most of the time, right? But the other thing too that I think a lot of people are constantly forgetting, and I do want to remind everybody, including everybody that keeps saying the Shadow Hunter's too powerful and needs to be nerfed and stuff like that, is that almost every class across the board is getting a buff with this update. Some of them are getting a nerf, and I don't know why. Like certain characters like Chloromancer, I understand the nerfs. It is disappointing, but Gunslinger, I don't really understand the nerfs there, because nobody really uses Gunslinger anymore in the first place, and so on and so forth. But my point is, then we've got, you know, we've got these constant nerfs to the Shadow Hunter and its movement speed and its damage, and pretty much everything about it is just getting absolutely goated, versus the Neon Ninja, where pretty much everything about the Neon Ninja has just been steadily getting better. Like, he hasn't gotten any nerfs. He can still end up one-shotting bosses and everything in U10 anyways, right? So it's just very odd to me that Shadow Hunter is getting such a huge amount of attention, which, again, I guess makes sense because it's such a popular character. But either way, I hope that this update ends up finally, like, I hope that they just finally get over themselves and give us this update next week, because for the love of God, Elden Ring's gonna come out before the Shadow Hunter ends up getting his rework, for Christ's sake. Thanks for watching, though, gamers. Really appreciate it. What's your opinion on the matter? Frankly speaking, I don't even care anymore, but you know, if you have a negative thing or a positive thing to say about it, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Otherwise, smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel, and have a wonderful day, everybody.